Hello everybody, this is going to be a slightly longer video than the previous two. I've completed the mobile joystick options for this little game thing I'd be making. And this is an iPad screen you're looking at right now. I want to show you on the iPad versus the iPhone because of one of the features really. So we've got two joysticks here. This one on the left, you can see my finger moving, that's the blue, moves your round strafe forward and back. And the one on the right will look side to side and up and down. There's a few features that I want to go through here, and you can click the open window and see all these game options here. So let's just go through these. Hide joystick. When hide joystick is on, the joysticks disappear unless you bring them up. And you can tap these anywhere and they'll show up anywhere on the two sides of the screen. So there's that. And then we have switch joystick sides. If you do that, then this will be movement on the right and looking will be on the left. Stop time when still is the third option here. This is the in-game timer. Because of the style of game I want to make, it's a turn-based combat. Generally with the computer you've got more buttons to press, and so you can easily stop time and switch into turn-based mode without much delay if you see an enemy pop up all of a sudden that you want to not get hit by or not get too close to you or whatnot. So now, as you can see, I'm not touching the left joystick here and time goes on. If I have stop time when still, time will be paused unless I'm pressing the left joystick. Now I can press the right joystick just fine and look around. That way if I'm surrounded by monsters and choosing which one to attack, I can do so. Next is the follow fingers. Without follow fingers, the joysticks will stay where they are. Now they still pop up wherever you touch them, but with follow fingers. So now this will follow you around it, and it will help, I think, players with different sized thumbs find the perfect spot for their thumbs to be at. Next, we have auto tilt return. When it's on, if I tilt up and let go, the tilt will return to the center. If I lower it and I'll do that. I can pause that just by pressing again. But with it turned off, it means I can look up and it will stay there. Tilting is much easier on a real game pad than it is with virtual pads. So there is one thing I've added in the code I'll talk about with this dead zone in the middle. So I can move up and down a little bit, and until it gets 20%, it won't tilt. That way, when people are using, they're going to want to turn left and right a lot more than go up and down. So those are two things that will help with the tilting for games where the tilting gets annoying, or for users if you want to expose this parameter in your menu for users who prefer to let auto return the tilt down. They can always, of course, hold the button down to keep it there and look side to side. Next, invert tilt, vertical tilt. That way, if you go down, it'll go up, and vice versa, and invert horizontal tilt. Now, one thing that I actually don't know what the proper way is. I don't really play games anymore, which is kind of weird. People wonder, wait, you make games but you don't play games? But it's true. So this rotate or inverts the looking joystick right here. So really it's up to you what the default is, but you can toggle those back and forth. And then reduce joystick size. This is for large screens like this iPad. It lowers the size of the joysticks by 1/2, so the thumbs don't really have to move as far in order to do the movement. And also it doesn't cover as much of the screen up. Alright, so now let's go through the script and see what's what. If you followed the previous tutorials, I did change a few things. One of the things I changed is in the time controller. I added a menu pause option, key pause, and joystick pause. Now, in order for time to be recorded, all three have to be 0. This is because the menu pause is also used by the joysticks, so that they won't be they can't be activated if the menu is paused. So I want to separate these. Key pause is going to be for keys and buttons. So now if you hit T, key pause will go up instead of what it was before. And then joystick pause is specifically for the virtual joysticks. It's only 1 or 0. There's no plus and minus for those ones. So I did change that. And so now we have in the canvas here, we have a move joystick and a look joystick with a move point and a look point right in their middles. The move is default to the left, look is default to the right, but you can easily switch that if you go into our mobile joystick controller in the control objects. If you say switch sides, then it will default to the opposite sides. So these are your defaults for the various options that we just went through. Max radius is the max radius of your joystick. Now we could compute this based on the size, but I want to give the user, you guys, the ability to adjust that just in case your sprite wasn't an exact circle or something like that. So this is the max radius. There's more details for all of this in the comments here. So this is a percentage of the screen. How far from the circle center can the finger go on a percentage? Now when it resizes, that gets cut in half. So 12% of the screen basically is about there, and that's how far away the finger can go. The max value and circle edge, those are computed in the in code here, and then we have the max adjust 1.2, which means 120% of the maximum circle before the finger will the joystick will start following the finger. So if you want the finger to be able to go further beyond the joystick circle before it starts following, increase that. Follow smooth damp is the smoothness of the follow. A lower number is a faster follow. I'm going to set it to 3. It was set to 5. I think maybe 3 is better. We'll set it to 3. And then tilt dead zone is the dead zone for the horizontal, for the vertical tilt right there. And then we have our references to that. So let's go through this. I suggest, as always, that you go through it yourself. Check out what it's doing. Try to figure it out yourself. Anything that you don't understand, you can come to the forums and ask, and I'll try to help you out. But the best way to learn is by doing, I think. So check out the video and then go through this and try to do it yourself in your own way. Otherwise, you know, I mean, there's a lot you can do. So in the start, we're going to set our player prefs. This is important for the first time a game is run. There's a big chunk of section for each of the various options that we have exposed. So the first part says if there is no key, if that's basically this is the first time you've run this game on this device, then you're going to set the player prefs based on whether or not the default is checked or not. So the first section does that. If we have a player pref already, then we're going to override our defaults to what the player has previously chosen. So that just allows the player to keep the preferences over each game play that they do. Every time they play the game, though, their settings will be to where they left it off. So that's what that function does. Next, if the player object isn't assigned, assign it. That's just in case the player object is in your game instantiated after the scene is loaded. So next we're going to set our positions for our move and move point. That's move P start positions. That way they get snapped back later. And if we switch sides, then we're going to run our switch sides function. Switch sides function basically takes the sides and switches them. It's pretty straightforward. It's no magic there. But if we're switching sides, then we're going to switch sides right now. If we're hiding joystick, then we'll turn our joysticks off. And if we're stopping time when still, then we're going to immediately say the joystick pause is on. Next, screen size, we cache that value and we set the joystick sizes. Again, this is a very simple thing. It just gets the original size of the joystick and the point, saves those, and then we do the resize joysticks function, which is literally just if we're reducing size, cut everything by a half. If otherwise, set it to its normal original size. No magic there as well. Alright, and last, we're going to pass the auto tilt return option to the player movement. Let's do that real quick. Let's check that out since we're talking about it. Auto tilt return, where are we? I add this the static variable right here. And now if auto tilt return, this is in the do rotation at the very end. Basically, there's a lot of reasons we don't want to do the auto tilt, and they're all represented right here. The auto tilt is very simple. It's just a move towards angle over the auto tilt speed, which is another new variable here. We do save the initial tilt right here at the start of this. That should set to 0 probably, but just in case you've changed something, that's basically the default it wants to go to. Let's look at the update loop of mobile joystick control. If we are touching the screen at all with any fingers, it doesn't matter where, then we're going to tell player movement that we're touching the screen. Next, we have our touch count loop. Now this will go through each finger and check out the different phases for each finger. The first phase is the began phase. This is where we'll start the joysticks if they aren't already set up. So in essence, if the phases began for this finger and we're not paused, if we're on menu pause, then this won't happen at all and joysticks can't come up. And the UI wasn't touched. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Then we can find out if the touch was on the left side of the screen or if it was on the right side of the screen down here. If it's on the left side of the screen and we're not switching sides and the move finger is not currently up, then we're going to set up the move finger to this one, which means if we're stopping time when still, then we're going to turn that off, because now we're touching the move joystick. And we're going to set our move joystick position to our touch position, as well as the move point, that's the blue circle in the middle, to our touch position. That's to match our finger. We're going to turn on the joystick, which includes the point. And we're going to set our move finger ID to our touch finger ID. The finger ID stays throughout each frame, but the variable I here will actually change throughout the frame. So you always have to save the finger ID. And our center move position is our touch position. That's the center point of the joystick. Now if we're not switching sides, or rather if we are switching sides, then this is going to set up for the look finger ID, very similar. And now do the right side, again, exact same thing for the right side based on switching sides. In the moved phase of the finger, that means the finger didn't just touch the screen and it didn't just stop touching the screen. We're going to do our actual movement. So if our touch phase equals moved and our touch finger ID equals move finger ID and menu paused equals 0, again, we don't want the player being able to move the finger during the menu pause. Then we're going to do our logic for our moving here. So our move point is now our touch position, and that keeps the blue dot underneath our finger. New move position, this is where our touch is, and the move distance is the distance between the center of the joystick and the new move position. If our max, that distance is greater than the max value, which is set in your inspector, and we're following the finger, then we're going to do the logic to follow the finger. This is the logic here. This variable, by the way, the move circle velocity, you just need to have it in your script, but don't assign it. This is assigned automatically from the smooth damp function right here. Next, we're going to get the angle. I hate math. I have to thank the Unity forums for helping me out with this. This basically gives us the angle and the distance, and if the distance is greater than the circle edge, then it caps that at 1. It normalizes max distance between 0 and 1. We're going to pass those two variables to the player movement for touch speed and touch angle. In player movement, in the do movement, if we're not touching, then it's going to do the movement based on get axis, so horizontal and vertical. If we are touching, then we're going to do the movement based on our touch angle and touch speed. Next, if the touch phase is moved and the finger ID equals the look finger ID, and again we're not touching the menu, then same thing, we're going to start with the point, making sure the blue dot is our touch position. Next we're going to do our new look position equals our touch position. This is very similar to the previous one, find the distance and do the following if we're following finger. Now we do get the angle here. If you wanted to change the code to use angles, you could, but we're just going to get our tilt value based on the y distance and our tilt speed based on the x distance, and we're going to do some math for the to rescale the value as well to get rid of that dead zone. So again, go through that math if you'd like. We're passing the the touch tilt for the Y value and the touch rotation for the X value, which is much more simple, to the player movement as well. And in player movement, do rotation. It's basically going to do the same thing if we're not touching. Side rotation is mouse X. If we are touching, side rotation is rotate, speed, touch. We separate these in this case because mouse X will be affected by the first finger touch. So we want to make sure that if we're touching the screen, we ignore the mouse X completely. And then the phase ended. It's very simple. This means that the user has the finger has been removed from the screen. So if it's phase ended and the finger ID equals move finger ID, we're going to do end move. Otherwise, if it's a look finger ID, we'll do end look. End move does a few things, and look does almost the exact same thing, just with its own appropriate variables. Player movement touch angle equals 0, and touch speed equals 0. Reset those. Reset the mouse joystick and point to their start positions. Move finger ID equals 99. That indicates that the finger ID is not currently active. We can use that in other areas of the scripts as well. If we're stopping time when still, then we're going to set joystick pause to 1 because that means we are no longer touching the screen with our move joystick, so we want to pause the timer. And hide joysticks. If we're doing that, we're going to set active to false, and look does the exact same thing. On disable, we're going to do the ending as well just to reset everything. Generally, the joystick controller won't be disabled, at least it doesn't happen in my game, but just in case you do ever disable it, we want that end logic to run. The last step is our options panel. Each one of these toggles just sends to either mobile joystick control a function, or for the invert, we're going to do the player movement functions. It's pretty simple. We've chosen the dynamic booleans up here. You just have to select that function, in this case toggle hide joysticks, and inside the script over here, it will pass the boolean is on to be whether or not the checkbox is checked right here. And if it's checked, so we're going to set hide joysticks to be on, and if it's now on, then we're going to hide our joysticks. Otherwise, we're going to show our joysticks, and then we're going to set our player preferences as well. Each one of these has slightly different logic for whatever section it is, what it's doing, but they're all basically the same. Setting the player prefs and the local variable here, and then adjusting anything that needs to be adjusted, like the switch sides will actually switch the sides right here. That's pretty much it. It works really well on both mobile and desktop now. We can run the game here, and our mouse, it's inverted, but our mouse works and our keyboards work. So let's, there we go. I think I've got my inversion wrong. I'm pretty sure I should have this opposite, but you know, you can figure out to your own game. So now if I wanted to, I could add I might default to hide joysticks, so that in a desktop version you'll never actually see the joysticks, even that they even exist. However, if you have a one of the new tablets that has a mouse and a touchpad, players can go either way on it, which is pretty cool. So if you have any questions, let me know. This is a pretty extensive increase in the code, but I think if you go through it, you'll see it all makes pretty decent sense. As always, there's probably many more ways to do everything I've done. There could be better ways. If you have one, please let me know. I love to learn as much as everybody else does. All right, thanks, guys.